It was a Tuesday morning in Maple Grove, Illinois, when everything changed. The kind of morning where the sprinklers were running on perfect green lawns and everyone was minding their own business. My name is Michael Thompson, and I live in one of those cookie-cutter subdivisions where every house looks almost identical, except for the color of the shutters. I work nights as a security supervisor at the local manufacturing plant, so mornings are usually my quiet time. But that morning, the quiet got shattered by the sound of boots on my front walkway. I was in my kitchen making coffee when I heard the heavy footsteps, not the light tap of a delivery person or the familiar stride of a neighbor. These were deliberate, authoritative steps that made me look out the window. What I saw made my stomach drop. A man in a dark uniform was walking up to my front door, clipboard in one hand, camera in the other. The patch on his chest read Residential Code Enforcement. Behind him, a white truck with official-looking decals sat in my driveway like it belonged there. My wife Sarah was upstairs getting ready for work. She's a project manager at a downtown consulting firm, always professional, always prepared for anything. But even she wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. The knock on the door was sharp and demanding, not the polite rap of someone asking for directions or selling something. This was the knock of someone who expected to be answered immediately. Opened the door before he could knock again. The man standing there was tall, probably mid-40s, with the kind of stern expression that suggested he took his job very seriously. Too seriously. He didn't smile, he didn't introduce himself. He just started talking like he was reading from a script he'd memorized. "I'm Inspector Bradley Walsh with Municipal Code Enforcement," he said, holding up a badge that looked official enough. "I'm here to conduct a mandatory property inspection based on multiple neighbor complaints." He said it like it was fact, like there was no room for discussion or questions. But I had plenty of questions. "Complaints about what exactly?" I asked, staying in the doorway. I wasn't trying to be difficult, but something about his whole approach rubbed me the wrong way. My property is well maintained. I mow the lawn every week, trim the bushes, keep the driveway clean. What could anyone possibly complain about? Inspector Walsh consulted his clipboard with theatrical precision. Violation of Municipal Ordinance 247.3 regarding front yard vegetation height. Violation of Ordinance 189.7 regarding unauthorized exterior modifications. And violation of Ordinance 401.2 regarding improper waste storage. Each violation rolled off his tongue like he was reading criminal charges. I almost laughed. The grass had been cut 3 days ago. The only exterior modification was a small weather station I'd mounted on the side of the house last month. And my trash cans were exactly where they'd been for the past 5 years. But Walsh wasn't interested in my explanations. He was already walking around the side of the house, taking pictures of everything. That's when Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the voices. She came down quietly, but I could see that look in her eyes, the one that meant she was processing everything, filing away details, getting ready for whatever was coming next. She has this way of becoming very still when she's focusing, like a cat watching a bird. "Sir, I need you to step aside," Walsh said when he came back around. "This is an official inspection, and interference with municipal code enforcement is a misdemeanor offense." The way he said it, like he was hoping I'd give him a reason to escalate things. But Sarah stepped forward before I could respond. "And so, I see your credentials and the specific ordinances you're citing?" she asked. Her voice was calm, professional, the tone she used in business meetings. Walsh looked annoyed, like he wasn't used to people asking for documentation, but he handed over his badge and a folded paper from his clipboard. Sarah examined both carefully, taking her time. I could see her reading every line, every number, every signature. When she looked up, there was something different in her expression. Not worried, not angry, just focused. "This inspection order is dated today, but it references complaints filed over a month ago," she said. "Municipal code requires 72-hour notice for scheduled inspections, and immediate inspections are only authorized for emergency health and safety violations. Which emergency ordinance are you operating under?" Walsh's confident demeanor flickered for just a second. "Ma'am, I don't need to explain municipal procedures to civilians. This is a valid inspection, and I'll need access to conduct it properly. But Sarah wasn't backing down. Actually, under Municipal Code 112.4, property owners have the right to verify inspection authority and receive copies of all relevant documentation before permitting access. She said it like she was reading from memory, each word precise and deliberate. That's when Walsh made his first real mistake. Instead of providing the documentation or explaining the process, he stepped closer to Sarah, using his height to try to intimidate her. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back and allow me to do my job. Continued interference will result in additional violations and possible arrest." I felt my hands clench into fists. Nobody talks to my wife like that, especially not on our own property. But Sarah put a gentle hand on my arm, keeping me calm while never taking her eyes off Walsh. "What department did you say you were with again?" "Municipal Code Enforcement, as I already stated," Walsh replied. But now there was an edge of irritation in his voice. "And you report to which supervisor?" Sarah asked. "I don't have to answer these questions," Walsh snapped. "You're obstructing an official investigation." That's when Sarah smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a nervous smile, but the kind of smile that meant someone had just made a very big mistake. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the municipal building to verify this inspection," she said. Walsh's face went pale. "That won't be necessary," but Sarah was already dialing. The call went through and I could hear her speaking to someone at City Hall. "Hi, this is Sarah Thompson at 1247 Oak Ridge Drive. I have an Inspector Walsh here claiming to conduct a code enforcement inspection. Could you please verify this is authorized?" There was a pause, then Sarah's eyebrows went up. "I see. And who is your current head of code enforcement?" Another pause. "Thank you very much." She hung up and looked at Walsh with that same calm smile. "Interesting. According to the municipal building, there is no Inspector Walsh employed by code enforcement. In fact, there are no scheduled inspections in this neighborhood at all today. They also mentioned that all legitimate inspectors carry photo identification and official vehicles with current municipal plates." I looked at Walsh's truck in my driveway. The plates were standard civilian plates, not municipal. The decals looked professional enough, but now that I was really looking, they seemed like the kind of thing you could order online and stick on yourself. Walsh's whole demeanor changed. The authoritative stance crumbled, replaced by something more desperate. "Look, there's been a misunderstanding. Let me just check my paperwork and—" "Who are you really?" Sarah interrupted. "And why are you pretending to be a code enforcement officer?" That's when Walsh made his second big mistake. Instead of admitting the deception and leaving, he doubled down. "I don't have to explain anything to you people. This is still an official inspection, and I have every right to be here." Sarah pulled out her phone again, but this time she wasn't calling City Hall. "I'm calling the police to report someone impersonating a municipal officer," she said. Walsh lunged forward and grabbed her phone. "You're not calling anyone." That was his third and biggest mistake. The moment his hands touched Sarah's phone, something changed in the air. The whole situation shifted from weird and annoying to genuinely dangerous. I started moving toward them, but Sarah was already handling it. She stepped back smoothly, creating distance while keeping her balance. Her whole posture changed, becoming more centered, more ready. "Sir, you just committed assault by grabbing my phone. You need to leave this property immediately." But Walsh wasn't listening anymore. He was panicking, probably realizing that whatever scheme he was running was about to blow up in his face. "Nobody's calling the police. We're going to settle this right here, right now." He reached into his jacket, and for a terrifying second, I thought he might be armed. But what he pulled out was worse in some ways. It was a stack of official-looking papers, clearly printed from a home computer, fake citations, fake fines, the whole elaborate scam laid out in black and white. "You owe the city $20,400 in violation fees," he said, waving the papers like they were real. "Cash only, payable today, or a lien goes on your property tomorrow." I stared at him in disbelief. This whole thing was a con game. The uniform, the truck, the official attitude, all of it designed to scare homeowners into paying fake fines. And judging by how smooth his routine was, we probably weren't his first victims. But he'd picked the wrong house this time. Sarah wasn't scared. She was angry now, and when Sarah gets angry, she gets very, very focused. "You're running a municipal impersonation scam," she said. "How many other people have you done this to?" Walsh realized his mistake too late. He'd shown his hand, revealed the whole operation, and now he was trapped on our property with nowhere to go. "Look, just pay the fines and this all goes away. No police, no problems, everybody's happy." "The car. Only thing that's going away is you," Sarah said. In handcuffs. She pulled out a second phone, one I'd never seen before. This one looked different, more heavy-duty, with what looked like a government case. She speed-dialed a number and put it on speaker. "Detective Morrison, this is Agent Thompson. I need a patrol car at my residence for a municipal impersonation. Fraud in progress. Suspect is on scene and has committed assault." Her voice was completely different now, crisp and professional in a way I'd never heard before. Walsh's eyes went wide. "Agent Thompson?" Sarah reached into her purse again and pulled out something that made my jaw drop. A badge, but not just any. Badge. FBI. Special Agent Sarah Thompson, Federal Bureau of Investigation. My wife, who I'd thought was a project manager at a consulting firm, was apparently a federal agent. The woman who helped me pick out curtains and argued with me about what to watch on Netflix was FBI. I stood there staring at her badge like it was written in a foreign language. But Walsh looked like he was about to have a heart attack. All the eye color drained from his face and his fake confidence evaporated completely. "I didn't know. This is just a misunderstanding. I was just trying to make some extra money by impersonating a government official and defrauding citizens," Sarah said. "That's a federal crime, in case you're wondering." The sound of sirens was getting closer. Walsh looked around desperately, probably calculating whether he could make it to his truck before the police arrived. But Sarah seemed to read his mind. "Don't even think about it," she said. "You're already looking at federal charges. Don't add fleeing and eluding to the list." 3 police cars pulled up within seconds of each other, followed by an unmarked sedan that screamed government vehicle. Officers emerged quickly, hands near their weapons but not drawn. The man who got out of the sedan was tall, gray-haired, and moved like someone who'd been doing this job for a very long time. "Agent Thompson," he said, nodding to Sarah like they'd worked together before. "Detective Morrison, what do we have?" Sarah gave him a quick briefing while the patrol officers secured Walsh and his truck. As she talked, I noticed how naturally she fell into law enforcement mode, using terms and procedures that clearly weren't new to her. This wasn't someone pretending to be an agent. This was someone who'd been doing this job for years. When the initial chaos settled down and Walsh was in the back of a patrol car, Detective Morrison came over to talk to us. "Agent Thompson, we're going to need a full statement, but I wanted to ask about something first. Has your husband been briefed on your cover status?" Sarah looked at me with something that might have been guilt or embarrassment. "We need to have conversation," she said quietly. Over the next hour, while Walsh was being processed and his truck was being searched, Sarah explained everything. She wasn't a project manager. She was a federal agent working financial crimes, and she'd been undercover in our neighborhood for 8 months investigating a mortgage fraud ring. The consulting firm job was her cover, complete with a fake office and fake colleagues who were actually other agents. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked when we finally had a moment alone. "Because the operation required a completely clean cover," she said. "The fewer people who knew, the safer everyone was, including you." I felt like I was learning about a completely different person. The woman I'd married, who I thought I knew everything about, had been living a double life the entire time. "Is Sarah even your real name?" "Yes, that part's real. And everything about us, about our relationship, that's all real too. The only thing that was fake was the day job." Walsh's arrest turned out to be bigger than just a simple fraud case. When they searched his truck, they found evidence of dozens of similar scams across 3 counties. Fake inspection reports, counterfeit, municipal documents, even a fake police radio to monitor for real law enforcement. He'd been running this operation for over 2 years, collecting thousands of dollars from scared homeowners who didn't know their rights. But the story was far from over. During questioning, Walsh revealed that he wasn't working alone. There was a whole network of people running similar scams, all coordinated by someone higher up the chain, someone who provided the fake documents, the counterfeit badges, the detailed information about municipal codes that made the scam seem legitimate. That's when Sarah's real investigation began. Walsh's arrest was just the beginning of unraveling a fraud network that stretched across multiple states. The same people who were running fake code enforcement scams were also involved in mortgage fraud, insurance fraud, and identity theft. It was a criminal organization that specialized in paperwork crimes, targeting middle-class homeowners who trusted official-looking documents and authoritative uniforms. Over the next few weeks, I learned more about my wife's real job than I had. In our entire marriage, she worked financial crimes, specifically targeting organized fraud rings that operated across state lines. The mortgage fraud investigation in our neighborhood was just one part of a much larger case that had been building for over a year. The fake inspection scam turned out to be connected to the mortgage fraud through a complex web of shell companies and fake businesses. The same criminal organization was creating fraudulent property assessments to inflate home values for illegal loans, while simultaneously running inspection scams to collect immediate cash from the same properties. It was an elaborate operation that required significant resources and coordination. Sarah's cover in our neighborhood hadn't been random. She'd been placed here specifically because this area was a target for multiple types of fraud. The quiet suburban setting, the high property values, and the residents' general trust in authority figures made it perfect for these kinds of scams. Walsh's arrest led to arrests in 4 other states within a month. The FBI coordinated raids on fake inspection companies, fraudulent document mills, and the central headquarters of the organization in Nevada. In total, they arrested 23 people and recovered over $2 million in illegal proceeds. But the part that stayed with me wasn't the big federal investigation or the criminal network. It was how completely I'd misjudged the situation when Walsh first showed up at our door. I'd been annoyed and confused, but I hadn't realized we were dealing with a criminal. Sarah had spotted the deception immediately, not because she was suspicious by nature, but because she knew exactly what real law enforcement looked like and what proper procedures were supposed to be. The experience changed how I looked at everything. Those official-looking people who show up at your door, the authoritative voices on the phone demanding immediate payment, the urgent notices that seem to come from government agencies. Sarah taught me to always verify, always ask questions, always demand proper documentation. Most importantly, she taught me that criminals often rely on people's natural tendency to respect authority and avoid confrontation. Walsh was counting on us being polite and compliant, paying his fake fines rather than making a scene or asking difficult questions. He'd probably succeeded with that approach dozens of times before, but he picked the wrong house when he picked ours. Not because I was particularly smart or brave, but because I was married to someone who couldn't be fooled by a fake uniform and counterfeit credentials, someone who knew the real procedures and wasn't afraid to challenge authority when, it didn't look right. The neighborhood changed after Walsh's arrest and the news about the broader investigation. People became more cautious about unexpected visitors claiming to be from various government agencies. They started calling City Hall to verify inspections before allowing access. They began asking for proper identification and documentation before discussing property issues with strangers. Sarah's cover was blown, of course, so she had to transition to a different assignment. The mortgage fraud investigation continued with other agents, but her role in the neighborhood was finished. In some ways, it was a relief. No more pretending to leave for a fake job every morning. No more carefully constructed stories about meetings and projects that didn't exist. But it was also strange adjusting to life with someone whose real job involved federal investigations, surveillance operations, and criminal prosecutions. The woman who used to complain about traffic on her way to fake client meetings was actually spending her days building cases against organized crime figures. 6 months later, Walsh pleaded guilty to federal fraud charges and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. His testimony helped convict the leaders of the criminal organization, who received much longer sentences. The fake inspection scam was shut down completely, and new safeguards were put in place to prevent similar operations. The experience taught me that the most dangerous criminals often don't look like criminals. They look like officials, like people, in authority, like someone you should trust and cooperate with. They count on your politeness, your desire to follow rules, your assumption that someone in a uniform must be legitimate. Walsh had been successful for so long because he understood how to exploit people's natural responses to authority. He looked official, sounded official, and acted like someone who had every right to be there demanding compliance. Most people would have paid his fake fines rather than risk getting into trouble with what appeared to be legitimate law enforcement. But Sarah saw through it immediately because she knew what real authority looked like. She knew the proper procedures, the correct documentation, the right way these interactions were supposed to happen. When Walsh deviated from those standards, she knew something was wrong. The morning Walsh showed up at our door had started like any other quiet Tuesday in suburban Illinois. By evening, it had become the beginning of a federal investigation that brought down a multi-state criminal organization. All because my wife, who I thought was a project manager, was actually an FBI agent who recognized a fake inspector when she saw one. Looking back, I realize how many small signs I'd missed about Sarah's real job. The way she always seemed to know when someone was lying. Her unusual knowledge of legal procedures. Her habit of checking credentials and documentation more carefully than most people would. I'd attributed it to her being thorough and professional, but it was actually her training showing through her cover. The story spread through the neighborhood quickly, and Sarah became something of a local hero. People stopped by to thank her for exposing the scam and protecting the community, but she was modest about it, insisting that she was just doing her job and that anyone could have caught the deception if they'd known what to look for. That's the part of the story that matters most. It wasn't just about having an FBI agent for a wife. It was about knowing your rights, asking the right questions, and never being afraid to verify someone's authority when they show up at your door demanding compliance. Inspector Walsh thought he'd found another easy mark in our quiet suburban neighborhood. Instead, he found Agent Sarah Thompson, and that mistake brought down his entire criminal organization. Sometimes the person who looks like they have all the power is actually the one who's about to lose everything. And sometimes the project manager, who argues with you about Netflix shows, is actually a federal agent who's been protecting you all along, without you even knowing it.